This is the reality show on Calabash TV, and we're happy to welcome to our studio Ty Duggins, who's the President and CEO of Eco Biotics.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
First of all, good to see you. Welcome to
you.
St. Lucia.
Thank you so much.
This is your first trip?
This is my third trip, actually.
Your third trip.
Yes.
So you're familiar with our island?
Yes, very much so.
Okay, good to have you here again.
Thank you.
Now, we were speaking off camera about mold, because that's how we have you here, because we hear that you are involved in it, you're an expert in that area. It's been an issue for us in St. Lucia, health-wise, in terms of persons falling sick, also environmental, and also it affects productivity as well.
It does.
And so I wanted to speak with an expert to find out exactly, first of all, define what is mold for me.
Mold is actually like fungi, and it has a predisposition for proliferation of growth in the subtropical climates. So when you have significant heat and significant humidity, and both of those elements are captured in a closed area, is going to proliferate and grow. It's not necessarily an evil that you have to endure. Okay, mold is very curable, but I think some of the issues in St. Lucia and other Caribbean climates is process cycle design. So in other words, when architects and developers are putting together buildings and structures, they've got to design mechanical systems that can help mitigate the growth of mold also. You don't want to build buildings with a lot of glass and then you don't have the ability to open glass windows. That's a failure. If you don't have HVAC systems and AC built in, that's another failure. So it's an engineered interior environment, but it does help to solve the issue of mold in the short and midterm.
What developed your interest in it?
It actually was by accident. I had been a manager at FedEx for about 3 years. And when I left that job, I became a teacher for 12 years. And so I taught special ed, I taught algebra, and I taught chemistry. I was involved with a multi-level marketing company, and they had a product that was the forerunner for the product that I have now. And I saw the value of that product then. This was back in 1999. Wow. And that product kind of took hold of my imagination. I was able to do a lot of bioremediation work. That's what I do. My company's an environmental concern. And mold was an issue in the United States, or has been for several decades. But that was an area that I sought to tackle early on. And so that's how I got involved in this process of bioremediation of mold and mildew. Yeah.
Would you describe it as a medical issue?
I would describe it as an environmental issue first. I think it becomes a medical issue because we don't deal with it in the environmental space. I was once engaged to a young woman whose aunt had to deal with mold and mildew in South Florida. She had been dealing with that problem for about 3 or 4 years before she realized it was mold. We went to her house and it was, I think, in August. We used those fogging machines they use on stage, right, when artists are performing.
Right.
So we applied the ECObiotix through a fogging machine. We told her to leave the house, the space. We fogged or bomb fogged the house for about 3 hours. We asked her not to return for 24 hours. Whenever she entered her house, she would cough. Her cough was caustic. So it was very difficult for her to breathe, and she had fear walking into the place because of her anticipation of how the mold spores would affect her. It took her a while to work up the courage to go in the house after we bombed the house with EcoBiotics. But when she went in, to her own surprise, she had no reaction. So she still had mold issues and congestion problems in her lungs, but she was no longer being bombarded by that specter in her home. And so it took her about 3 months to recover. They gave her antibiotics, they gave her some other meds at the hospital. But in her home, all of the mold spores were destroyed by the product. Now, she had to replace all of her drywall and sheetrock. That had to be replaced. What we later discovered after that point was that drywall was bad drywall from China. That may have helped contribute to the development of the mold in the first place. But it worked very effectively. And she has not had any return to her house because she also had enough product that if it did return, she'd have the means to dispose of the mold. And that was in her air vents, through her HVAC system, and it bombed through all of the rooms in the house. So she hasn't had a repeat episode of that, and this has been almost 6 years ago.
We'll talk about your product in just a little bit. But we know in Lucia, quite a number of offices, especially public offices, do have issues, and we've had schools and so on. We've had cases where we've had to shut down schools for a while. We've had to shut down offices for a while. People have fallen sick, and so it affects productivity across the board as well. And it's pretty costly as well trying to get it dealt with. And so we have the issue that you mentioned in terms of just how we build our buildings and how they are ventilated. So for somebody who's listening who probably suspects there's an issue, and they probably have some reaction to it, before even we get to your product, what are some of the things that they should start doing?
There are a few things. Ventilation is very critical key. And if you have poor ventilation or no ventilation, the problem's not solvable in the short term. If they suspect that mold is an issue, there are a couple of things you want to check. You want to be able to go into your AC, your air the air shafts, the vents. You've got to check those, because if you've got mold spores in your air vents, when you activate the air, that's circulating the spores with the air itself. You understand? So you're transporting spores from one space or one room to another. That spreads and activates the ability of others to become infected by it. Those are things that you definitely want to pay attention to. And you want to make sure that there's not an undue amount of humidity on the indoor space where you occupy, whether it's at work or at school. In subtropical climates, that's almost a kiss of death.
So let's talk about your product. What is it called, and what exactly is it?
ECObiotix is a combination of microbes and enzymes in a biosurfactant package. The bacteria in our product kills E. coli, Cryptosporidium, Salmonella, mold and mildew, Pseudomonas aeruginosa. Now, the point I make about all of those is that they can all kill you. And at the very least, they can all make you extraordinarily sick. But the fact that EcoBiotics can eliminate each of those almost immediately gives you a tool that allows you to attack mold and mildew the same way. It's not a 6-hour period. It's not a 24-hour period. It's instant deactivation. So if you've got this tool in the hands of housewives, mothers, fathers, school teachers, custodians, whoever would actually do the real application of the work to get the job done, this is a tool that you want in your toolbox to eliminate that problem on demand and on site. And if there's 30,000 points of entry for this stuff, and you got 30,000 people doing this job, you eliminate the problem much more quickly, as opposed to having a service company or centralized agency going out to attack this problem. It would take too long.
So what inspired you to think of this product, and how did you go about putting it together?
The inspiration came from the fact that there was a need. I think most people go into business to make money. We all do. But there are also people who just go into business to profiteer. What that means is that you've got to have someone or a resource that you can exploit, right? And someone has to win, but that also means someone else has to lose. We're in the business of trying to create win-win situations and win-win propositions, so that, because you don't want a one-time sale, you want repeated business. However, we're also in business to deliver services and products that improve the quality of life of those in which we serve and in the places with which we serve. And that's our social responsibility in any community that we do business in. Now, if you're not doing that, then you can be in business to make money, but we're also in service to one another. And God gave us an edict in Genesis that says that we are to go forth and take dominion in the earth. Dominion doesn't mean to recreate in the earth. Dominion means that we take responsibility and that we're supposed to steward our resources. That's part of our job from a corporate mandate.
One of the key things, obviously, when you have products like that is, first of all, how safe it is, and can almost anybody use it? Give us an idea, and you can show us the product as well. How much concern went into making sure that it's as safe as possible?
So EcoBiotics, from a technical standpoint, we passed what's called a whole effluent toxicity test. That's a wet test. It's an EPA test standard. So EcoBiotics will not harm fish or marine life. That's a critical element of importance to understand. The second test study that we took under EcoBiotics under is called a cytotoxicity study, and that one was commissioned at Howard University. Now, EcoBiotics was tested against eyeball cell tissue. Now, eyeball cell tissues are among the most sensitive tissues in the body. This cytotoxicity study is a pass or fail test. There is no in between. Just like the whole effluent toxicity test is pass or fail. There's no in between. What we discovered with EcoBiotics is that it protected the eyeball cell tissue. That's counterintuitive. The pH in our product, the fact that you're talking about microbes, enzymes, and a surfactant package, that chemical composition doesn't intuitively lead you to believe that it's going to protect eyeball cell tissues. So we tested it at a 1%, 5%, 10%, 25, 50, and 100% dilution rate. And at each dilution rate, the product protected the eyeball cell tissues. So what that tells us is that there's no cytotoxic reaction to eyeball cell tissues with the product. So if it doesn't affect your eyeballs, it's not going to affect your skin. You understand? And that's really, when you're applying this product anywhere in space, that's what's going to be impacted first. Now, just to be certain, EcoBiotics is not something that if you wash your hair with it and it gets in your eyes, it's going to sting just like shampoo would, but it's not going to make you blind. You follow me?
Yeah.
So those are the kinds of considerations that you would take. Having said that, though, you don't need a mask to use this. You don't need to wear gloves or protective clothing. There's none of those kinds of restrictions you needed or required to use EcoBiotics in a home setting, in a business office, in a school setting. Those things aren't required.
How do you decide where you apply it to?
It depends on the nature of the problem. So you can use this in a toilet to eliminate the odor, the smell from poop, or in tall urinals in a men's bathroom. You spray it in the urinals, it kills the urine smell. If you're using it on bed sheets in a nursing home, again, it cleans poop, urine, blood stains. All those things come out. If you want to use it on the kitchen counters, I've seen while I've been here like those little flying ants. So EcoBiotics kills those on contact. It kills red ants. It kills mosquitoes on contact. So there's a multiplicity of uses. But for our specific conversation about mold and mildew, if you have black mold on your walls, you spray this on, take a paper towel, it wipes right off. That's how effective it is. And it breaks that down. The pH in our product is about a 9.5. Now, typically in the high pH range, if someone throws product like that on your face, it should melt your skin off like car battery acid would. This product is completely, and in fact, obviously, I have some here.
Yes.
So, you spray some of this on your hand and loosen this up. And you can use this almost like a soap. If you had ink on your hands or oil from operating or cleaning a car, it cleans all of that right off. But, as I said, I spray, this is a heavy concentrate, and there's not going to be any pain or any damage or anything like that. This cleans dirt, grease, oil, hydrocarbons, gasoline, kerosene, you name it. It breaks all of that down, and it renders it inert. And the way that you know is that if you spray this on any of those things and you light a match and toss it in, it's not going to ignite. So this lowers the ignition level by order of magnitude.
So what brought you to St. Lucia? Did you come specifically for this, or was it something that happened accidentally?
I came with a team of folks. We were here about immigration issues, the optics in the diaspora concerning increased levels of violence on the island. And the team that we brought are high security experts, and they wanted to be able to assist the local government and help them to develop certain protocols and some planning infrastructure to be able to curtail those kinds of challenges and issues. My part in that is always an environmental risk. If you have an outbreak of dengue or malaria or cholera, that will lead to population migration. That creates geopolitical unrest and risk. And we want to be able to show the island how to mitigate those kinds of risks. So, and EcoBiotics goes a long way towards solving some of those problems, not all of them.
Have you been engaging local officials or local, just private citizens about the mold issue?
Both. And I'd love to tell you that your government officials have been extraordinarily open. They're quite receptive to the discussions and the plans that not only that they have, but what we can contribute to help improve some of those. But we've come to ask a lot of questions. We didn't come assuming that we have all the answers. We needed to come and get a lot of feedback so that the information and solutions that we offer will be more able to fit the dynamic and the signatures of the island. But your leadership here seems to be very open and willing to do what it takes to improve the condition of its population here, and that was very pleasing to see.
And the product was created to deal specifically for our situation here, or it's a pretty generic product?
No, it has a generic response. The signatures in Africa, which I came back from about 2 months ago, their signatures are a little different. India's signatures are quite a bit different, but EcoBiotics has been more than up to the challenge even there. Once I leave here, I'll be there for about 30 days. We've got some projects on the Ganges River there. They've got several lakes that are on fire, literally, and we're not sure if that's based on methane gas or if it's hydrocarbons in the water. But either way, both of those are challenges that we've solved before. They also have problems with cholera and malaria and dengue. And right now, their desire is to get rid of mosquitoes. What we're saying is that let's pump the brakes on that for now, and let's see where do those 3 vectors spontaneously generate. Let's say we get rid of all the mosquitoes in the country, and let's say someone is infected with dengue or malaria or cholera, and they take a dump in your river or they urinate in the river. Well, then that's going to transmit one of those 3 vectors, right? Mosquitoes had nothing to do with it. So if we get rid of mosquitoes, that doesn't solve the problem. So we want to make sure that we plan properly, that we investigate and dig deep enough to figure out what the true nature of the problems are, go to the source origin of those problems, solve the problem there, and then we think long term, we lift the risk off the population in terms of those kinds of threats to their health, and also to livestock, water supply, which is a critical life support resource supply system. We think those are things that really need to be protected, and certainly here. One of the issues we brought up to leadership was this. In the developed world, water is becoming critically short on supply. Developed nations that have large armies and have core competency in military tactics will seek I shouldn't say invade, but they would come to a place like St. Lucia in the Caribbean where if the military might is not powerful, they're going to come to you in the guise of trying to help or negotiate, and they're going to put you in a place where they're going to usurp your authority so that they can get a hold of your fresh water supply. So where this is concerned, we're talking about also being able to help develop platforms of protection around your water supply with a product like this, and because it's a resource of value. And so when any nation comes to visit this island is sovereign. And because it's sovereign, you have to negotiate in good faith. And you come and you ask for help. And when St. Lucia is in a position to do that, St. Lucia also demonstrates her strength and her prowess and her value to the rest of the world. And we want to be able to contribute to that dynamic.
Good. So we've had some discussions here. What happens next?
I'm leaving on a plane tomorrow to head back to the States, but I've been invited by some of your local government officials to return. And so I'm going to try to do that in the next 2 to 3 weeks. I plan to bring enough product with me to do product demonstrations, workshops, so we can show people how to use this. My commitment is that I will deliver product gratis if necessary to make this work. Because going forward, we know that there'll be a business opportunity here. So I'll bring as much product as I can, even if I have to pay for it out of my own pocket. But my desire is to make sure that St. Lucia is in very good shape and safe from the threat of mold and mildew going forward. I love this island. I love these people. There are no warmer people in the world that I've met. And I've been to 12, 13 countries now. And my heart is here. And I want St. Lucia to be healthy and well. And I'll do whatever I can to contribute to that.
Good. My next question was, persons who are watching this and saying, okay, where can we get EcoBiotics? Is it available stores or online?
No. This is a EcoBiotics is a specially made product. It's not. We customize this.
Okay.
Depending on what it's used for. So it's used in sewer lines for fat, oil, and grease. It's used for mitigating mosquitoes. It's used for mold and mildew. It's even used in textile industries to control odor. So each of those are different compositions. So we don't sell it off the shelf. It's not in any stores, and we're not even selling it online because typically all we've sold this to has been to industrial and commercial customers. But with this in mind, we may have to change our business model. But we're probably going to partner with a company in St. Lucia on the ground here. We will get product to that company, and that company will become the hub of distribution on the island so that we can make it available to whoever needs it. And then that would be quarts, gallons, 5-gallon pails, 55-gallon drums, whatever becomes necessary, we'll make it happen.
I know you have a very active travel schedule.
I do.
When next do we see you here?
As I told you, I go to India for a month in December. I'll be in Africa for 3 months. Your government is trying to get me to squeeze in between those schedules, so I may try to get back here before the end of the month, and certainly before I leave in December. So within the next 2 or 3 weeks, I'll probably return trip here.
Well, certainly very good to have you here, and it's a very critical health issue, and as you mentioned, also an environmental issue, and we're happy that that you're here to help us deal with it, because it is affecting health here in St. Lucia, affecting productivity as well, and it's very, very costly. So we'll appreciate you. Ty Duggins, the President and CEO of Eco Biotics.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And look forward to seeing you here again.
I'll be back.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you for the time.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
This is The Reality Show on Calabash TV. Thank you for being with us.
This is The Reality Show.